This is my first time moderating, so bear with me. I'm super, super excited about this panel today. We've been planning it for quite a while, and I think there was some chatter about all this cool stuff Katie Dahl was doing. There was some chatter. Of course, I've known Anne for a long time and known her to be incredibly creative, and then she told me about Jake at Evanston Space, and so these three amazing people are doing some really cool stuff. There's a lot of live streaming going on out there, and so finding ways to kind of stand out and do something a little bit different, and finding ways to connect with your audience, which I think is what we're all desperate to do right now. That's kind of what our focus was today, and so I'm really interested in hearing all these perspectives. Katie Dahl, Anne Heaton, and Jake Samuels have been doing some really great out of the box thinking, right? So I think we're going to start right now by just having them each do a quick introduction and tell us just briefly about what they've been doing, and then we'll go back around and get a whole lot more details. So let's start with you, the lovely Katie Dahl. Please say hi to everybody.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Katie Dahl, and I live in Door County, Wisconsin, so northeast Wisconsin. I'm a singer-songwriter who, under normal circumstances, plays a lot around where I live in the summer and fall because there's a big tourist audience, and then tours in the winter and spring. I'm also a playwright, so what I've been doing, and I think why Annie suggested that I be on this panel, and I'll talk about later, is a variety of things, including curbside song drop-offs. So I've been going to people's houses and playing songs. I've been doing gift mini sets, so I've been recording little mini concerts and other socially distanced ways of having music. I started a new Patreon page. And I've been looking into new merch possibilities, and I've been sort of thinking about myself as a development director more than a singer-songwriter, like how do I raise funds? So I guess my overarching philosophy in this time is like, what do my audiences need that they didn't previously need, and how can I meet those needs? And also, what do I need that I didn't previously need, and how can I, connivingly convince my audiences to meet those needs of mine? So those are, where do those things meet? So that's me.
Conniving. Perfect. I love it. Thanks, Katie. Let's go down the line here to the lovely Anne Heaton. Hi,
Hi,
Anne.
I'm Anne Heaton. I love what you just said, Katie, about finding that overlap. I'm Anne Heaton. I'm a singer-songwriter and piano player. I've released 7 solo albums and I don't know, something like 9 if I count group albums. I also am the founder of an online songwriting school called Soul Songs. And in the summers, I teach songwriting at Berklee College of Music and for the Grammy camps, and also I have taught at Interlochen. Today, I think the title is Ways of Creatively Connecting with Your Audience. And my audience is a mix of music fans, people that have followed my music for a long time, and also songwriting students, and sometimes those two groups overlap and sometimes they don't. So I'm just going to talk about maybe 2 or 3 things that I've done since the pandemic hit, and how a willingness to experiment and be flexible, those 2 qualities have really helped me get a chance to do new things that seem to be working really well and have been fun. So I'll elaborate more on that shortly.
Thanks, Anne. Jake Samuels. Hey,
Everybody.
we have a venue in the house. A very cool venue. Say hi.
Hey, thanks for having me, Annie, and organizing this. It's really great to connect with everybody. My name is Jake Samuels. I've been the programmer at Space since it opened, which is going on 13 years in 2021. We also, Space, if you don't know, is in Evanston, Illinois, just outside Chicago. We also have Thalia Hall that I book as well, which is a 900 cap renovated opera house in the Pilsen neighborhood of Chicago. And we do an outdoor series called Out of Space in Evanston. We have been dark since March 12th, as most venues have, and have been doing our best to keep busy, keep the lights on, keep some staff working, and kind of continue our role of connecting music fans with musicians around town, and making sure there's still music to be had. So we've done lots of live streaming since that shutdown started, but have gotten, I think what we're here to talk about is the to-go concerts, which is sort of our concept, which brings little micro concerts to people's outdoor space in their home, front or backyard.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Jake. We're looking forward to hearing a whole lot more about that too, because I remember in our conversation how much more it was than just like what it sounded like, and all you guys. So yeah, I want to hear a lot less of my voice in this conversation. Katie and Anne and Jake and I have all had these great conversations about what they are doing, and what I was really interested in was how like they were thinking beyond just what they're doing now and what they're planning to do kind of down the road, and some of the lessons you've learned in the process of doing it. So Katie, how about you elaborate more on your wonderful plans?
Or conniving.
Conniving plans.
Yes. The first thing I wanted to talk about was these curbside song drop-offs that I've been doing, and I stole that name and idea from Amy Helm, who's a musician in New York, and basically, like, what I have going for me in this situation, and maybe some of you do too, is a local presence, like a place where a lot of people near where I live know who I am. So I decided to try to use that to my advantage, and so I instituted these curbside song drop-offs. So basically, what I do is I go to people's houses, and sometimes there's just the residents of the house there, but sometimes there are, sometimes people will gather their whole neighborhood in a socially distanced way on the lawn. And I do it so that I don't have to set up a sound system. I keep it to 3 songs or less, like usually 1 or 2, so I don't get too vocally tired. I charge a minimum of $20, but I say pay what you can. And so what that means is usually that people pay more than $20. A lot of times they'll pay like $100 for a private little concert. Or they'll just ask their whole neighborhood. If their whole neighborhood came, they'll ask for tips. And like one family brought a 6-foot tip jar out, with like a tip jar on a 6-foot pole that they took around and handed to people, which was sort of awesome. And so, like, my whole philosophy in this time has been to realize that at the same time that I'm learning a lot of new technology in order to make this work, my audience is too. And I've been trying to do my best to eliminate barriers to entry for them, and remembering that like, it might feel to me like, oh, if they don't understand how they're supposed to get a curbside song drop off, they can just email me. Like, my email address is everywhere. And to remember that actually, like, people's lives are busy, their Facebook feeds are crowded, and to make things streamlined and easy and clean and clear is hugely important. And it also feels compassionate to me to what people need right now, which is sort of like guidance through the crazy unfamiliar territory that we all find ourselves in. So I got a photographer to come on the first day, a professional photographer, the first day I did these, so that I could get some really high quality shots so that it would be, people might have a sense of like, what is it that I'm doing? Because that really helped me with, when I saw that Amy Helm was doing those, I was like, what does she mean curbside song drop-offs? But then she posted some pictures and I was like, oh, that's what she means. She stands at the curbside and sings a song. No problem. So I brought a photographer. I advertised like not only through my normal channels, but also to people that I don't, aren't maybe fans of mine, just are in the geographic area. Because I thought, like, what's another thing that people need? They need, maybe they need like a Mother's Day present because for their mom who they can't go visit. And maybe they'd like to have me be that Mother's Day present. Things like that. So I've been trying to anticipate what it is that a person just stuck in their house feeling stressed might want. So if it's okay, I'll share my screen and show you the little form I made. Share screen, desktop, yes. So this is, can you see this? This is my website. And so I made a new page, like you can access it from my home. This is my home page, and you can access a socially distanced music thing. And you can choose a curbside song drop off, a gift mini set, or a Zoom party. And so if you click on curbside song drop off, it's like they can say their date, they can say the time, their phone number, their email, just all the essentials that I would need to know. And then at the bottom, it tells them how to pay. So to me, like that felt important to have it be simplified. I also made, I also wanted to show you a couple of pictures of how they end up looking, in case that helps you to think about how you might, I don't know, well, it just might help you to know what they look like. So there's like me with a bunch of people out in front. And there you go. You know, whatever, same deal. These are all big ones, but there were some like for example, this, just an individual couple too. Sometimes people give me beer. That's nice. So there you go. That's the basic deal with the curbside songs. And I also got this idea from, I saw that both Susan Werner and Dar Williams were advertising these gift mini sets via City Winery. And so I decided I could sell those too. So I did that, and I basically, I have the same form off of the same page of my website where people can sign up and tell me who they'd like me to send the mini set to. So it's 3 songs, and I put, if they have a special message, I say that message in the concert. If they have certain songs they want me to do within reason, I do those. So like I've done those for a lot of Mother's Day ones, a lot of Father's Day ones, anniversaries, a guy who was deployed, stuff like that. So those have been really cool. And then I've been advertising Zoom concerts and lawn concerts, which are, as you might imagine, just a longer form, you know, than a curbside, like a lawn concert. It's like a house concert, right? Probably uses my PA, and it's outside. And Zoom concerts, you know exactly what those are. So those are like the 3 socially distanced music options that I've come up with. Alongside of that, I started a Patreon page, and that's a whole nother webinar, of course. But I was really astonished at how amazing it was, and confused with myself as to why I didn't do it for so long. Because now I make like all this money every month that I would not otherwise have been made. And it's also fun. It feels like it's strengthening my relationship with my audience in the long term, because I'm actively asking my audience, my patrons, what it is that they want, on what kind of content they prefer. And so they've asked for certain covers that I've worked up, or they've asked for like, could we see your songwriting notebook for a song? And like, so that's awesome. Like, I wouldn't think of what to do if they didn't tell me. And it's sort of like Kickstarter, except for with like way lower stakes and way easier communication between people. So I am very into the Patreon thing, which I won't belabor because I know that there's a lot of conversation about that elsewhere, but it is a way that I'm connecting with people now. And I've also been like thinking of myself. I've really been trying to shift my attitude toward myself as to think of myself as specifically a fundraiser, and thinking about like nonprofits and how it is that they go about raising money, and how they go about thanking people particularly. So like I started a whole new spreadsheet, a very involved spreadsheet of all the different people who have sent me money in any form, like a check, a PayPal, a Venmo, a Patreon, whatever. And that way it's all kept track of in one spot. I'm keeping track of their physical addresses, and then I send them these little thank you notes, postcards that I had printed up. And I think that it really, I mean, the reason to write a thank you note is obvious, like to show that you're grateful to people. So I don't want to be cynical about it, but I think there are real tangible benefits to that too. Like I think that and lasting benefits. Like I think it reminds people that you're still there. It makes them feel, I think if you take your job as a person who's trying to keep themselves afloat financially seriously, then other people tend to take more seriously that you need to raise money. And then they are, the people who are able to help you are more likely to see you as a legitimate place that they might put their funds, who like with follow through and reliability. So I think that has been important to me. Some things that do I have like 2 more minutes? I didn't.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm hoping I was gonna say I was hoping you were gonna get to some of the stuff you were telling me about that you guys were thinking about doing.
Yeah.
And then actually Anne has a question for you.
Oh, okay. So I have like 3 things in the hopper that I haven't executed yet that I am hopeful will be helpful to me. One is that I'm working on new merch. I wrote a song about the pandemic, and I mean, whatever, it's not about the pandemic, but you know what I mean. And I'm making those into t-shirts, like thinking, oh, like, I'm not going around and selling merch, but maybe if I have something that's relevant to the moment, people will respond to that, and maybe I can make some money that way. I am, so with these curbside song drop-offs, my husband said, you know what we should do is buy an old VW van and like go take that around to the curbside drop-offs. And I was like, oh yeah, we totally should. And then I looked and they're very expensive, but we do have a terrible lame Chrysler 2000 minivan that we are going to spray paint like a cool color and write curbside song drop-offs on. So it's like a traveling billboard. And what I'm thinking that we're going to do is I have my hit, to the extent that I have a hit, a slim extent, is about locally owned restaurants in this place where I live. And it's the 10-year anniversary of when I released the music video of that song. So I'm thinking I'm going to have that song is called Hometown Tables. So I'm going to have the Hometown Tables tour, where I'm going to ask local businesses to please sponsor one of my weekly live streams. And in exchange, I will come with my curbside song drop-offs, really groovy Chrysler minivan, and play out of the back of my van, like outside their restaurant for an hour during a busy pickup time, hopefully soliciting tips also with like a long stick. And like, so that's the Hometown Tables tour is the next thing on my sort of execution list. And then there was one more thing that I'm working on. I'm working on a drive-in concert idea. We have a drive-in movie theater. I'm going to try to hook up my sound system to a drive-in. I don't think that was it, but anyway, those are the things that I've got in the hopper.
That's awesome. Katie, like, first of all, just listening to you rattling off all these things, like, where do you get the energy to and like, there's so much focus on so many of those things. I can imagine that a handful of people think about like these ideas, but it's actually taken the step to execute it that's really inspiring to me. Like how much you are just plowing ahead and have become this like mega businesswoman. So, like,
Well,
kudos.
well, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Anne, I know you're dying to ask Katie a question, so I'm going to let you unmute yourself before we turn.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
Katie, thanks so much for showing those pictures. I felt like you
yeah.
were right. It really helped illuminate that. Just about the virtual concerts that are a gift, is that always like, so say someone is gifting it to a family member, do they always have to get those family members to attend on Zoom, or do you ever like just upload songs to YouTube and just share a link, or is it always a live exchange? That's the question.
So it is rarely a live exchange. I have done a couple of live ones, but it's almost always an unlisted link on YouTube to a video. Yeah, and I like make a little iMovie frame that says like "Happy Birthday, Jean," you know, and then I say, "Hey, Jean, it's Katie Dahl," whatever. So and then I send the link. I ask them if they want me to send the link to the person or if they would like to send the link to the person themselves.
Very cool. Yeah. So Mark Smith says Katie should get restaurants to sponsor her van with ads.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Great idea, and I trust that you will implement it. What I loved also about some of the things that you said is how you stole ideas from people. And so I think we're encouraging everybody to steal ideas from Katie now. So
Yeah,
like she's pretty much putting herself out there for that.
totally.
So yay you, Katie. Awesome. All right. Moving on. Ouch, that hurt. I'm sorry, I just slapped my hand. It gives me great joy to also have my friend Ann Heaton, who was living in Michigan for a little while, and I got to see in person on occasion, but now is far, far away again. So, and even if you were here, I couldn't see you in person, could I? All right, please, let's spotlight the lovely Ann Heaton.
Thanks, Annie. I'm glad you mentioned the moving because I think that's a good jumping off point. One of the things that's important to me in my business and in my artistry is integration. And so I know, Annie, you wanted me to talk about the podcast. I have this online songwriting school that I created, which is like a mixture of two things. It's like the craft part of songwriting, like melodic development, harmony, lyric writing, and then mixed with like a very creative component. Like how can you get yourself in a really creative zone to write the songs you most want to write? So when I first made that, I had like a friend slash coach say, you should make a podcast. And I was like, no, I'm terrible at talking. I only like singing. I'm too shy. But anyway, I thought about it more and more, and I decided to do it. I mean, at first it wasn't a public podcast. It was just like a learning series that you could access if you were a student or on the email list. But one of the reasons that I did that was because I have moved so much, and it was a way to connect with, my greater music community and my friends, to be on talking about songwriting. And what was really cool about that is that some of these songwriters I've known for 15, 20 years, like Meg Hutchinson, some of them are my best friends, but I didn't know how they approached songwriting, or I didn't know what it meant to them. So we ended up having these really deep conversations. And this kind of speaks to what Katie was talking about, which was very like heart filling and soul filling for me. And then it also could be a tool for other people to learn from. So this year I decided to make those, recordings public, and I just put them out on Apple. And then I've been doing some new ones as we go. And so now I wanted to touch on that because Annie had kind of asked me to, and if you have a question about it, Annie, it's fine. But now I want to move to what changed with the pandemic. So this year, this is the thing I'm most excited about. Not this, but what I'm going to say after. But I released this book and album called To the Light, and it's basically something I wanted to do for a long time. Was not just to release music, but to release the story behind each song, like how it came to exist, and then to put the lyrics in there, and then there's reflection questions at the end of each chapter. So I have a song about joy, and then there's reflection questions. I have a song called the Celebration Song, And then there's questions about that, like, do you prefer to celebrate others or yourself? Or what was your favorite celebration ever? And for a while I've wanted to like have a book music club, and I thought, but I was too scared to do it because I thought, well, what if it doesn't work? Like, am I going to go to somebody's house who already has a book club, or do I invite people to my house, or do I put it out to my list and we gather and I play songs and we answer questions together in our journals? Like, it seemed a little bit too vulnerable to try that. And then the pandemic hit, and I thought, well, I could just try it virtually. So I put it out to my list, and I began hosting this weekly book music club over Zoom. And it just was so wonderful because one of the things that I say in this book is that one of the reasons I like sharing my own stories and telling people's stories through music is because I hope that people will share their stories with me. And I've been feeling, as a performer, sometimes it can feel like the communication is more one way. And I have longed for it to be more two-way for a while. And through this book and music club, it really became that, because, you know, I would start it out by playing a song and reading a story. And then I would ask questions, and people could either participate or not. But at the end, most people would choose to participate and share something that they noticed, share a reflection. And so that was both a way to just connect with my audience in a new way, and also, again, it was very satisfying on a human level. And then after you know, I completed the whole like 8 weeks of that, I decided to try to do that on Facebook. So I'm doing that now, and it's a little different because people can't, obviously, we can't talk back to each other, but people will post in the comments, and I'm trying that. So that's been really fun. Let's see, what else did I want to say? So yeah, so I guess what I wanted to highlight about that is, you know, you might not want to host a book or a music club. It's going to be unique to you and who you are and your business. But you know, my willingness to be able to try something that I wasn't sure if it was going to work really paid off in this instance. And I feel like these new circumstances make it easier to take those chances. Also because people are holding each other, I think, to a little bit of a lower standard. I feel like in the past, if you were late to something or you had to change it, people would be a little ruffled. But now in the pandemic, it's like people will miss things and they'll just say things like, I forgot what day it was. And everyone's like, yeah, no problem. Me too. I forgot. I often forget what day it is, you know? And so I think people are being a little more sympathetic and compassionate and understanding towards each other. So it's a great time to try new things. What else did I want to say? Yeah, the other thing that changed is my approach to teaching. I created, as I said before, this songwriting curriculum, which is like a 12 module curriculum. And it really is a lot. And I lead people through it either in a 3-month container or in a 9-month container. And when I made it, I meant for it to be very like comprehensive and, you know, for people who went through it to really learn a lot and come out with having written a lot of songs. But when this hit, I thought of myself and how it was hard for me. I have 2 young children, you know, 7 and 9, and how it was hard to even think more than a week ahead, or sometimes even more than 1 or 2 days ahead. And so getting back to my theme of integration, when schools were first canceled, I thought, like, well, what am I going to do with my kids? And I thought, well, this will give me a chance to do more stuff with them musically. And we can work on some songs, and because sometimes I feel like life is so busy for kids that you don't even necessarily do the stuff you want to do with them. So I thought, well, how did the book and music part go together? What length of story do you read? Okay, good question. I'll circle back to that in a second. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, right. So then I thought, well, you know, I also want my kids to be able to connect with their friends. and with other children. So I put that out to my list. Like, I'm gonna be hosting a creative writing class for 8 to 10 year olds and a songwriting class for 8 to 10 year olds over Zoom. And so I started doing that, and it was really, really fun. And I can say with 100% certainty I would not have done that if it were not for the pandemic. And I discovered all sorts of wonderful things, like, 8 to 10 year olds can actually sit and listen to other people's stories and give them feedback, which I did not know that. It's completely a miracle. And we wrote collaborative songs together. So, that was a way to not only, replace income that I had lost from not touring, but it was a way for my children to connect with other children and to be in this really connecting kind space where we're making art and writing songs and writing stories. The other thing I did is that when I thought about, soul songs, I thought, like, I don't want to offer something that's so comprehensive and so big. Like, if I'm having trouble thinking a week ahead, I want to, like, just chunk it down. Like, what are, like, the highlights of some of the things I teach, and make it a really easy yes. So I lowered my prices. I made, instead of it being 3 months, it's just 6 weeks. And so right now I'm in the middle of teaching an adult, summer songwriting sessions, which is full of some great people, and we got started doing that. And I'm trying to think if I feel like I'm a little bit losing my train of thought, but in that, I think the key was flexibility and being willing to change the way I do things that is related to right now. And also to what Katie said, I thought, like, well, what would I want right now? I wouldn't want to have to commit to something big, or I don't want to read a long email to figure out, like, making long-term goals. I would just be like, oh, do I want to take a songwriting workshop on, storytelling, or do I want to write, a melody that uses in the style of, just something really simple. And so that's how I'm thinking about it. And in answer to your question, how did the book and music part go together? What length of story do you read? So the stories are like 1 page. So it's basically the story of how the song came to be. Like, here's what happened. So I read it, it's about a 1 or 2 minute story. And then there's the lyrics, then there's reflection questions. And then at the end of each chapter is something I call a creativity key, which is usually when I have found with others that when I'm writing a song, sometimes there'll be some resistance. Like this first song, someone had asked me to write a song for the Women's March in DC, and I really didn't want to, because I was like, oh God, how can I be universal enough? And I didn't want to. And usually if I don't want to, it means I'm supposed to. So I'll just read this one and then I'll be done. The creativity key for me to overcome my own resistance to writing it, I called intimacy. To write this song, I had to get cozy with my greatest fears, with what fills up my heart, and with what helps me transcend my daily circumstances. By peeling back the layers of the generalized anxiety I felt, I found vulnerability, hope, and a desire to invite others to do the same. So that goes along with my philosophy that sometimes making art will exact something from us, will require us to grow in some way or face some fear. So
that's beautiful.
I hope that was helpful. Annie, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, comment. Jake has a question, but we were gonna like sort of. I think there was a question that somehow got through. Y'all aren't supposed to be able to ask questions to people directly, but we want to try and save some of the questions because we are going to come back around to all of them again as questions come up, of course. But I want to just say, Anne, that one of the things about like that you said I just adored the bit about lowering your standards, about people having lower standards right now, which is, I mean, on one hand, kind of really cool, but on the other hand, I think that what the responses have been kind of elevating the standards in a lot of ways. Like so much what we're seeing from the folks that are getting really super creative is suddenly like, okay, I'd like to see, you know, some are just on a completely different note, standards being elevated again. And, but you have a curiosity. This is the thing about me that I love. Like you, the way you do interviews, the way you are always so curious. And I think that works with your kids and it works with, you know, the way your book. I'm not sure what my point is, other than to say that I really admire that about you. Like you are more interested in the other person than yourself, and I think that you are always thinking about that in the way you approach things, and it's such a giving style that I just really love that. So, um, unless you had something that you wanted to add to wrap up, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to Jake. But we'll
Well,
come back around and
thanks, Annie.
yeah, no, really great. I love it. So, Jake Samuels,
Hey,
welcome to our little world here. It's great to have you.
thanks, Annie.
Thanks.
Um, yeah, so there's a lot of talk around sort of the plight of the music venue lately. I feel like organizations like NEVA and IPA have done a really amazing job of organizing venues and getting independent venues speaking to each other and about the sort of specific needs of these types of businesses, and that's been great. But it's also heavy and takes us away from the fun part of this job, which is being around music. So it was pretty apparent to us early on that we were going to need to find ways to bring music to the community, and that was going to look different week by week. There were going to be different different regulations, guidelines passed down, and we were going to have to kind of stay on our toes to keep up with that. Late April, we started this to-go concert concept, and the idea was to partner with local musicians based in or around Chicago, and bring small, kind of what we were calling portable micro concerts to their homes, and kind of bring a lot of the trappings and the things that they may recognize or identify with coming to see a show at Space as well. That was really important to me. Any songwriters on here are, you're probably doing house concerts much better than we do. And, so it didn't feel like that novel of an idea, right? It's basically a house concert at its core. But for me and for Space, it was sort of about how do we make this venue additive to that equation? How do we bring the experience of coming to Space to people's house? So we do it by sending staff that people recognize, and I kind of didn't consider how much people really identified with seeing the same faces when they would come here to see shows. And we're a neighborhood venue, and we see a lot of the same faces a couple nights a week even. So there was an element of that. We bring the rug from the stage, we bring some signage, we bring some tchotchkes from the dressing room, we bring pizzas from our restaurant, which people really love eating our pizzas, and we bring some really nice cocktails and drinks and some candles even. So we try to set a vibe. We try to bring the venue along with a great performance, and people have identified with that. We announced these. We sold the first round for $450. They were 30-minute concerts with food and drink and all of that. And we sold them out instantly. And the first round we did with an artist named Jason Narducci, who lives in Evanston and plays with Bob Mould and Superchunk on sort of the rock circuit, but also is a pretty wonderful songwriter in his own right, and had a musical called Verboten about a band he was in as a teenager that did really well in Chicago. So people were excited to see it. We booked basically a week of shows where we were doing between 3 and 5 shows in a day. And we would just sort of pick this thing up and do half-hour concerts. And I routed these little tours around our neighborhood. You know, we would go from block to block and set up on people's lawns, and they would sit out there. And the reception was incredible. I mean, people, this was kind of early May, so people had really been in their homes for six solid weeks, and this was really, I mean, for us too, we hadn't been out, we hadn't been working. This was really the first time I had been out doing stuff. So, you know, we did that first round of about 20 shows. We took, it was a learning experience. We realized there was a ton of attention. We quickly got a fair amount of press. The Chicago Tribune did a big piece. BBC picked up the idea and did an interview. CBS News came out and did some filming. There was a lot of attention on this, which again was kind of surprising because I didn't think it was all that novel of an idea. But I guess at the right time in all of this, it was a feel-good story that people kind of gravitated towards. So that saw this grow a little quicker than we were even comfortable with, to a point where we actually pumped the brakes and said, you know, is this the time to be doing this? Do we, you know, are we causing any trouble here? You know, at that point, COVID numbers were sort of starting to flatten, but far from over. I mean, even today, it's far from over. So we stopped, we regrouped, we spoke as a venue, we spoke with Jason, who was the artist on those first shows, and we said, listen, we want to do these, but let's do them right. Let's do them in a way that's beyond safe. The last thing you as an artist, us as a venue need is to have a bad video shared of us appearing reckless. You know, how do we do these in ways that we can really control the situation? So we ended up refunding about 10 of these that I picked up the phone, I talked to the hosts who had bought them. It was clear that they were expecting to do this as more of a block party than for them and their next door neighbors or on either side to enjoy. And we just all agreed, let's do this at a different time when it feels more appropriate. So that was part of the learning curve. How do we do this and have everyone feel really good about it? We took a little break to regroup. We built a website, which, let me see if I can share it with you. So we put this website together with some photos of the first shows and just a lot of information. It took some explaining to get the concept across. We have a lot of signage that we've made. We put a video together, like a 40-second promo reel and some quotes. We came back with about 15 artists, everything from sort of gypsy jazz to Chicago blues acts to jazz duos and classical ensembles and 80s cover bands and plenty of folk and songwriters. We did the rest is sort of an FAQ and then a form that people can fill out to let us know sort of how many guests they would expect, where they would host it and dates and all of that. So we went back up and business has still been good. We have tweaked the pricing a little. We'll go outside of our town of Evanston for when it's worthwhile. we've stayed in constant communication with our city government around it. That was really important. We didn't want to, kind of sour our relationship there by getting out in front of our skis during a pandemic, going out and doing shows in people's neighborhoods. There's a sort of a reckoning we're having about, whether this is the role we really want to play in bringing music to people. Is it too snooty? Does it exclude too many people? It's not cheap to do. And so how do we work through some alternatives that allow us to do music more broadly in the community, and bring these shows to neighborhoods that might otherwise not have music going on. So that's really a discussion now. Illinois is in phase 4. There's a little, they're at least suggesting gatherings of up to 100 people outdoors are tenable. So we'll finally get to kind of do that phase of this project. What else can I tell you? Kind of to Katie's point, there was such a lack of ways to celebrate things, to celebrate an anniversary or a birthday or a graduation. We kind of joke that this has almost become a singing telegram operation, where you need to make someone feel good. This is a really great way to do it. So there've been some amazing kind of moments in doing this. I mean, just this week we did a show with Jason, who it was a 70th birthday for someone in Evanston who had played in Brit rock groups growing up in the UK, and was really moved and surprised. He didn't know about it. His wife arranged it. And let me see if I have that photo actually. And Jason did a whole set of songs from this guy's youth, and the guy really, really responded to it. And he went to play the last song, and the gentleman ran inside to pick up his guitar and came out and played along with him, which he said was the first time he'd played music with anyone in almost 48 years. There's a photo of it. There's some interesting opportunities too. I mean, Jason just posted this on his personal page, this sort of recap, and I think it had over 1,000 likes and comments. It got shared quite a bit. We can stream these shows from people's homes as well, which is a whole nother revenue stream, to accept donations that way, out in the virtual realm as well. And I guess the other piece of this is that I think we found that there's a good chunk of the potential audience here that wants to see a songwriter the same way they would show up at Space to find something new, or someone that they maybe hadn't heard of, and come and take a chance on a show. But there's also a pretty recognizable vibe of people wanting kind of a comfort food thing. So we don't do much in the way of cover tribute shows at Space. It's original music at the forefront. That's always been a really important tenet of ours. But in this one, we're willing to kind of stretch that boundary a little. I mean, like I said, if someone wants a set of Brit rock music and that's what's going to make them feel really good right now, we want to cater to that in ways that maybe we hadn't before. So we'll take requests, and that's actually something we've offered and monetized even. And now we have some sort of cover shows where if you like, classic rock, or you like post-punk music, or you like, acoustic covers, whatever it is, we want to make that available. We don't want to go and be the guy playing Stairway to Heaven in the corner, but if someone can articulate sort of what's going to make this event really resonate with them and special, that's kind of what this is all about. So yeah, we have another 30 shows on the books for the next month or so, and we'll see how long it continues. Yeah.
Cool.
That's our story.
That's awesome. I'm sorry, but I'm still picturing the guy in the corner playing Stairway to Heaven. I don't see there's anything wrong with that. I am not anti Stairway to Heaven like some people are. Um, Jake, that's awesome. And one of the things I love about what you're doing too is like, sure, there's artists out there like Katie who can do a lot of this themselves, but having a venue to collaborate with is, it just gives you both broader audiences and opportunities. And we know from a lot of our venue peer sessions that the venues are looking for ways to collaborate with artists, because you know that a lot of the heavy lifting has been done by the artists now since that, because they're needing to get out and kind of do everything. I have two questions for you. One is, did I see sound systems? Were you actually setting up sound systems? These were plugged in?
It really depends on the act. So they've sort of been envisioned as unplugged events, especially when we're doing a couple in a day. It's really easy to just sort of pick up and move. But there's some artists that want a small PA for vocals. And
if you got a big old band, of course, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing, the biggest sort of configuration we're doing is a trio.
Okay.
So we're not going to set up a whole band on anyone's front lawn.
Okay.
But,
oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
I mean, I was curious about that. It
Sure.
works both ways. But I'm also asking a question on behalf of Katie and myself. I'm curious about the pricing and like, it varies with the act, and then do you split that with the performer, or how does that work?
We do. It's a 50-50 split. We, like I said, we bring along food and beverage. We also staff two people, one to kind of get everything set up and deliver a lot of the food and drink, and then another person just to help make sure we're communicating with the host. We're leaving it so the artist just has to show up and perform and doesn't have to deal with a lot of the logistics and hand holding that might go along, and just to keep things safe. I mean, for the most part, these, 95% of these have gone amazing. It's really, everyone's socially distanced in their backyard. Couldn't be cooler. A great vibe. But we have done one or two where we set up on a front lawn, and by the time bikers riding by stopped and neighbors and had invited other friends, there might have been 75 or 80 people out there. And we were like, this isn't it, guys. This isn't what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a 50-50 split with the artist. We're sort of starting pricing at $750 right now in Evanston, and we've done some in neighboring towns all the way up to $2,000. So,
cool.
That gets back to the piece we don't want this to make music, so exclusive that people who want it can't enjoy it. But it's been hugely helpful to generate needed funds for the venue and these musicians whose gigs have largely dried up. So it's been financially, it's been surprisingly, pretty good.
That's amazing. And in the same way that you are, also like the artists are learning new songs, for people like spending some time learning new songs, you're going out of the usual, genre to please your audience, and to bring music to people, which I think is really awesome. Yeah. That's really great. We have a few questions. We have some hands raised, but I am going to throw out a question right now we'll start with Katie, and then we'll go to Anne, because this is for both of you guys. Mark Smith is curious to know how you have expanded music and writing post-pandemic, like your own experiences in that. So Katie, we'll start with you.
I have a son, a 4-year-old son, and so who was abruptly out of daycare, once the pandemic started. So I found myself with much less time than I was used to having. So I have been feeling a lot of urges to write and not a lot of time. I mean, I think it's always a devil's bargain focusing on business or focusing on writing, because you need your business to amplify your writing, and you need your writing to have your business. So
yeah.
So I've been focusing on the business right now, because I feel like right now there are outdoor playing opportunities, and there aren't going to be in November, and there aren't going to be indoor playing opportunities in November either, I suspect. So I could be wrong, but so I've been thinking, I have not been doing a lot of writing is the answer to that question.
Well, well, you've been doing a lot of other stuff. Like I said, I don't know how you're juggling it. And you're a mom. So, amen to that. Anne, you want to address that?
Sure. So that's a great question. I would say it's the writing that's happened is writing that never would have happened under normal circumstances. So uh, I talked about the kids classes earlier. So one of the easiest ways I find to work with kids is to use a chord progression called the axis of awesome, which is 1, 5, 6 minor, 4. And you can Google this on YouTube. Just Google the axis of awesome, and you'll see how many songs are written with this chord progression. So,
I love that.
in terms of writing, here are some of the choruses. One is stuff I do when I'm bored. Stuff I do when I'm bored. And then there's another one that's creatures of the forest, creatures of the. And then there's another one about the pandemic where the kids wanted to say, oh, I like it, but I don't like it at the same time. Whoa. So anyway, I think it's safe to say that I would not have written those songs if there was not a pandemic. So yeah, so that's what's happening with the writing. I'm writing children's songs, and it's really kind of a lot more fun than writing adult songs. What else? I guess some, like I can think of a unique opportunity that came up. Like I'm writing a song with an old friend, Nene Camps, and another old friend, Ethan Eubanks, who's an amazing drummer out of Brooklyn. Just because, just weird things would happen, over Facebook, like, how are you handling this? Should we write a song? So, but in terms of like having some sort of like deep reflection about these past few months and writing a whole album, that hasn't happened for me, but I know it has happened for some other people. So
Yeah.
thanks for
Well,
the question.
again, you're a mom too, doing a bunch of other things. So, thanks. Actually, I just had an idea. Brianna, write this down. I think we need to have a panel on collaborating, like songwriting collaborating, like in this time. Like that would be really cool. All right, so we're going to go to the studio audience now, and we have a couple of questions. And the first blue hand I see up, if y'all want to raise your hands, or again, you can send your questions to Brianna. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so doing this. So Jewel Yulvin, my friend, where are you? Oops, I just lost you. There you are.
Okay.
You're,
This is, yep. Can you hear me?
yep.
This is kind of a hive mind question, but Katie brought it up in passing at the end. The idea of the drive-in theater concerts people have been proposing, and we had talked about that with Fox Valley back when they first started talking about it. And that's a bigger scale than we would need for anything. I was wondering if you've run into anybody or seen anybody doing it with low power FM. You don't need a drive-in theater. You just need a parking lot or a good-sized field, and you don't even need a license. But you could cover, maybe 100 cars or 200 cars. I had started to look into it several times, and we've been up to other things, but just wondering if anybody had any thoughts on that, if you had seen anybody doing it.
All right, panels, raise your hand if you have. Like Katie, go ahead.
Well, so there's a venue in York County that was seriously considering doing drive-in concerts, and they decided not to. So I inquired after a lot of investigation. So I inquired with them as to why they had decided not to. And basically, their thought was that the latency between the FM transmission and any sort of they were like, are people just going to have to literally sit in their cars the whole time, even if it's a nice day in July, to just listen to the radio? Because if we have real speakers and the FM transmission, there's going to be a delay. So and then there's like sightline problems. Like the actual, like a field would possibly be better than a drive-in movie theater in terms of that, because unless you can broadcast your video on the screen. So I don't know. The things that after the conversation with the venue that I had talked to, it made me feel like, why wouldn't I just get some really big speakers and have a concert outside versus the messing with the technology of the radio.
Yeah. Cool. I'm going to interject a question that came earlier that I forgot to address from Marilyn Ray Byer. And Jake, maybe we'll start with you on this. But she's asking, how do we continue adapt these virtual innovations, like kind of like what Katie's doing, what you guys are doing, once the indoor dining returns? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. I will say we have a full calendar right now, but there's a noticeable drop off, right? Like it looks very different than it did in early May. People can go out to restaurants or sit on patios, or there are these drive-in concerts or movies, or life is starting to resume, and people aren't as hard up for options as they may have been. So yeah, I think I think kind of diversifying, maintaining some streaming options, but also some sort of real life options is probably the best way to see it through.
Yeah. The indoor outdoor, our seasons in the Midwest are
Right.
always questionable, but okay, Marilyn, I hope that answered your question. If you want to chime back in, I'm going to throw the mic over to Sue Fink.
Ah,
There you are.
myself.
You're
Hi.
unmuted.
I'm out in the Montrose Bird Sanctuary. But I actually, one of the questions was answered. It was a question for Jake about sound, because Evanston Space is known for their sound, and I was wondering how that was handled going around. You've got the restaurant people and the food and everything, and if you were having a sound person going along to get the sound set up, or if that was up to the artist. And then the other question is it the same? You were talking about multiple concerts per day. Is it the same artist and all these concerts per day? And I was wondering how the artist was affected by that.
Those are good questions. Hey, Sue.
Hey.
That's a really good point, right? Like, we want to as closely approximate the experience of coming to Space, and I do think we really hang our hat on the sound in the venue.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, that hasn't factored in here. We're amplifying these lightly only when necessary. Just given the size of these audiences, 10 or 15 people, we don't want to blow anyone away. We also don't want to upset any neighbors, or we have had the cops show up once. It was 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon, and they kind of laughed it off, but someone did call because they didn't like the music happening. So to keep these sort of nimble and under the radar, we are avoiding bringing in a full PA and an engineer. Although I would love to find some alternate ways that we could do that and bring some of our engineers back. And then what was the other? Oh, in terms of the artists, yeah, it has been the same artist. We're now doing some days where we have a couple of these going with different artists at the same time, and we'll have sort of 2 crews running them. But we've done as many as 5 in a day with the same artist, and they're 30-minute shows. And we plow through them. It is a hustle. It is not easy. But over the course of 5 hours, we can hit 5 of these. It's basically 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off, and there are 2-minute drives in town. So that's kind of how we do it. But yeah, that's a hard day's work for sure. But it did allow us to kind of keep the price a little lower, and still have a really good day for everyone. So that was good.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Jake. All right, well, I don't see any more hands up, and I don't see any more questions in the queue. And um, so I was thinking that maybe we'd take the next, oh, I don't know, 10 minutes tops, maybe less, and throw it back around one more time to our wonderful panelists and with any final words. If you just want to kind of talk about how you're feeling about going forward and maybe any other thoughts you wanted to throw in that you didn't get a chance to say, and then we'll wrap this up because it's been an amazing conversation. So Katie, let's go back to you for.
Well, what else is there to say? Well, I did want to say that I've been trying to, one thing I forgot to say in the first little thing is that I've been trying to partner as much as I can with logical or surprising partners, because, like, for example, right now I'm at a theater that I do a lot of work with. They have good internet here, and I don't at my house. And I have been part of a thing. I started a variety show with the artistic director of the theater and me. We have a bake-off and trivia and do 2 songs together every Sunday. And we like sit in the same room, like with a drum shield between us, like a plexiglass drum shield. Which is like, by the way, I don't think this would hold up against, like, this is not PPE, right? This is not like that impressive a shield for the COVID germs, but it makes people feel better. Anyway, so I've been trying to partner with various people to do that. So I was going to say that, and I saw that Shanna asked a question earlier. Shanna in a dress. I saw in the chat about whether things have slowed down at all, and they definitely have. But I would say now I feel like it's like I flattened the curve, but it's still like going. Like I still have some. I feel like now is the time to grow this and grow these ideas and maintain them and like add new twists and keep pushing them on in advertising and on social media. Like I'm thinking of taking out an ad in the local paper, like a big expensive ad, just because like I feel like there are a lot of people who live here that aren't clued in. Hard to believe, I know, but to the Katie Dahl thing. And I would like them to get clued in, and maybe this is a good time. You know, like I was at the Don White thing last week that Farm had, and I really appreciated what he said, that like, what are the ways that we could come out of this stronger than we went into it? Like, in what ways can we like not only survive but thrive or set ourselves up for thriving later? And I thought that was such an important thing. So that's all. So to answer your question, Shanna, it has slowed down, but it's still going, and I kind of feel like, okay, now we're in maintenance mode, and how do we keep maintenance mode working?
Cool. Thanks, Katie.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, you guys. We were just a little confused because we did not see Shanna's question in the chat, and we're trying to figure out how the chats. You're not supposed to be able to chat with each other, so both Brianna and I are a little confused. And it's like Marilyn heard us and responded, and
I see now that Shanna's question was private to me, so she could chat with me
privately.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, weird. All right. Excellent. Okay. So people. Well, never mind. All right, we're going to figure that out for next time. But Anne, where are you? I've lost you in my little screen over here. But you got any final words for us, my dear?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I guess I would just invite people to, sometimes when I listen, I like to listen to the spirit behind something, and I would just encourage people to do that, because a lot of ideas have been shared, and we're all different, and we have different goals. So just to think about what would you really love to do, like what would be super inspiring, and then maybe how you can use some of the tools you heard today to make that come to fruition. And I'll just give one last example, which is not related to the music business, but it's related to kind of integrating and finding something that works in numerous ways. Like as a mom, I've been thinking like this summer, like, what do I do with my kids? Like we're gonna go outside, but I'm another experiment I'm trying. This is not something that has anything to do with making money, but it's I thought, okay, well, I'd love for my kids to see their friends, and I'd love for my children to know other adults. And so I'm doing something on Monday where um, each parent gives an hour on one Monday teaching something over Zoom, or like baking something, or like teaching sewing or drawing, or like doing, some cartoon, some activity with everyone else's children. So if you're willing to give 1 hour of your time, then you get 9 hours of time where your kids can tune in, be with other kids and another adult doing a project. And I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm trying it, and the reason I'm trying it is because it meets some of my needs, it meets some of my kids' needs, and hopefully it will meet the needs of the greater community. So
Awesome. As usual, thinking about other people. Jake, we're going to give you the almost last word, because of course we have other
This has been really great, and I really appreciate everything Katie and Ann had to say. I guess the only thing I would add is talk to your promoters. I mean, if you have a venue or a promoter that has been important to you lately, reach out to them. They got a lot of time on their hands and a decent platform to help amplify what you're trying to do. And I think I talk to promoters all day, and I think everyone has different fires to put out and different things on their plate and different projects they're trying to get off the ground. But if nothing else, I really appreciate hearing from musicians and checking in and checking in on each other and talking about projects. Ann and I are talking about how Space may be able to help promote some of the songwriting coursework she's putting out this summer, and I'm open to anything, and I would imagine most promoters are as well. So don't hesitate to reach out and keep those relationships cooking.
Oh, that's a perfect way to end that. Thank you. I think that kind of sums up what Farm is feeling right now as well. Like we are, first of all, so grateful to Katie and Ann and Jake for spending their time with us and sharing their stories and the work they're doing. Amazing work. Thank you for inspiring everybody. Thank you, Brianna, for doing a great job on tech. And yeah, man, this is our first tag teaming together, so this was super fun. And so I'll tell you what's coming up. Farm Virtual Connections Tuesday Tech Talk is going to be next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. I just wanted to say that over and over again. And that is with Charlie Mossbrook is going to demonstrate green screen, which, especially if you're doing kid stuff, I think is really helpful. But he's been doing some work with the green screen, so that should be really fun. And I'm not 100% sure what our next panel, webinar like this is, but we do have some great peer group sessions next week as well. And we're inviting the artists to attend the presenter peer session, and likewise the presenters to attend the artist peer sessions. I think everybody's open to kind of learning a little bit more about what's been going on. It's been great to hear what Jake's been doing. So I think that you should feel free to register. The only thing we ask, if you're an artist, that you avoid, pitching for a gig. But they all want to hear what you're up to. Everybody, we're all kind of in this same boat. So come find us at farmvirtualconnections.org. If you are in a position to assist in a tiny, tiny way, we are starting a little sustainer program, and we're working on ways to get you something in return for that. But because we want to help support our community, we are doing a little bit of financial outlay on these talks for you. And so if you got $5 extra a month, You can just sign up on our website to drop a automatic payment and don't even have to think about it, kind of like your NPR program, only, with your friends. I am done with my chat here. If you're looking for something else to do, in about a half an hour, Surfa is doing a webinar with Carrie Estrin. And we want to cross promote all this stuff with all of our regional family and friends. And so if you've got the time and bandwidth to sit in on another webinar. But once again, let's do a quick more spotlight on Ann Heaton, Katie Dahl, and Jake Samuels, and everybody. Now let's do a gallery view. Y'all know how to make your gallery view? Let's get a gallery view. Shake your hands if you're visible and show them your love. Thank you all so much. This weird ending is going to feel abrupt. We're going to send a survey. Please fill it out, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, everybody. Bye.